Hi, Zizaran here with another build guide for Expedition League. This is Toxic Rain and is going to be a very solid League starter that wasn't affected by the nerfs as much as everything else. Toxic Rain is a really strong build just for mapping, bossing, everything, and is really good for solo self-farm, and it has pretty good defenses, so it works very well on hardcore as well. And this was a build that nothing mechanically changed, right? We know it was just a numerical nerf. So this build should still be fine because it was really strong in 3.14. Now, if you aren't familiar with any of my build guides, so we do a leveling system and stuff like that, where we walk you through the leveling process point by point. So it's very easy. You don't have to worry about some build guides will just put here you go. What do you allocate first? You don't know. So it's a step-by-step leveling process, very easy to follow, and we have loads of options for if you have cluster jewels, if you want to go more defensive, and we have our early and mid-game endgame tree and stuff like that. There's a lot of notes so that if you are getting stuck on anything or you want to know where to buy skill gems if you're very new to the game, there's a lot of extra information if you are running into something. And if you watch the video and still stuck, you can come ask me questions as well. In the skills here, we have, we show you exactly what to use while leveling. You have a lot of choice here with, or rather it walks you through the leveling process. So very good there. And then at the bottom here, we have our late game links, and there are notes as well. Should be a very easy to follow, strong build that explains everything. The Bandit is skill point. However, especially on hardcore, taking a Lyra on day one is never a bad thing, especially now with the increased mana cost. And then you can respec later with 20 regrets and an Onyx Amulet to skill point. Pantheon is going to be Solaris and Valikesh. One notable change from 3.14 to 3.15 is that we're no longer ailment immune from our Ascendancy. We do, however, get 50% ailment immunity. And while leveling, you also get to see what point to take first. However, we are 50% ailment immune from our Ascendancy, and then we're going to make up for that by Crystal Skin, and quite a lot of mana multipliers have gone up, so you might need to take things like Primal Spirit and Druidic Rite to help with mana, but that is more of a played by ear thing. And you might also need a higher level Clarity. Now, as you can see with the build in action, and obviously we're not actually going to use 4 mana fast, this is just something I threw together to show how the skill plays, but it's really nice and smooth while mapping, right? You're mostly running, your Mirage Archer does a lot of work, and actually has a lot of damage on an actual build, way more than what you're seeing in the background. It had 3 items equipped on the build. But really strong. This is something I've played multiple times and taken down bosses with. Works really well. So if we look here in the item set, we have different item sets, mid-game, early game, etc. Early on, Quill Rain is really good. If not, getting a plus gem level bow early on is really nice. Obviously, Toxic Rain really benefits from that. Quill Rain is very chanceable, surprisingly chanceable, probably 1 in 300 or 1 in 500 on average, which is a lot easier than most things that you would scour chance. And as you can see, all the items at the start are rare with resists. Now, it doesn't specifically matter where you get the resists. You just want to make sure your character is resist capped. However, we try to make sure that the build has a decent amount of damage with very little gear, so that it can be a really good starter, right? And you don't want to specifically require uniques. So, for example, instead of Quill Rain early on, try to get a bow with plus gem levels on a 4-link or a 5-link if possible. And that would be really good. But high attack speed is very strong for this build, and Quill Rain is usually pretty obtainable. And again, you can see here in the mid-game, there are other items, etc. And some items will have red text with some notes on them. So it'll explain a little bit more on items. We have a lot of detail going into the guide here to make sure it's easier to understand. Flasks, we have Divine Life Flask, Enduring Eternal Mana, and Quartz Flask, and a Jade, and a Quicksilver. Alchemist, Quicksilver of Adrenaline, was obviously used a large amount in the past. That might still be the case, but that's something you have to try out and see if it's something you can keep up a lot. Because if you can't keep it up, it might not be worth doing. Then in the late game, we have, for example, clusters and stuff like that you can go for, and some examples of nodes that you could roll on your cluster jewels. The final thing, which is more of as an idea for hardcore players that want to be really tanky. This isn't strictly necessary on softcore, But it uses the Sabakwa keystone, which gives you a large amount of elemental resist. To build around this, you really gotta have high chaos res, so you would want to have like obviously all your elemental resist capped, and you would have to have 83 to anywhere from up to 90 chaos resist, and that would be really, really good then. Other than that, some other things that are really good for the build, we have Watcher's Eyes are really, really good. There's a full list of usable Watcher's Eyes here, and then we have loads of examples of jewels that are good for the build as well. Here you can see one with some extra notes on it. And again, scrolling through everything should make it pretty easy to understand everything, and you can always revert back to the notes if you have any questions. So I'll cover the Q&A that we do at the end of videos to make sure we cover everything. And are there too many gems to equip? No. You have a lot of like open gem sockets, and if you don't run Caustic Arrow, which some people don't bother with, they feel like they have enough damage, then you have a large amount of open slots. Can the player have mana issues? Probably. Mana is obviously taking a huge nerf this patch. The build should be pretty good with it, and there is also the Soul Siphon skill point that you are next to if you need more mana on kill. This might feel good for mapping, but an Enduring Mana Flash should solve most of your problems, I hope. Useful leveling uniques, obviously you have things like Quarry Ward, you have Replica Quarry Ward, and yeah, like Tabula is decent, obviously. And your normal like Cold Rim, Wanderlust, etc. But Quillrain is definitely the best leveling unique here. So for quality of life and defense, this is a very, very strong mapper, but against bosses that have degens and stuff, and you are actually getting hit, then it's a bit of a struggle because it doesn't have a large amount of sustain. In the past, this would have been bypassed slightly by running Vitality, but you might not be able to do so because of the mana changes. Very, very good mapper, and very, very good for bosses where you're able to not get hit, but anything that has like degens on the ground, like Elder, Uber Elder, etc., could be a little tricky, and you want to try to avoid having those. Next up, auras we're using Malevolence. For damage, we're using Dread Banner to make sure that the monsters hit us less, and then we're using Clarity. And again, you might have to play around with the Clarity level. Do remember that it reserves a flat amount, so try selling it with a Scour if you feel like you have not enough of an actual pool and your regen maybe feels okay. As far as mechanical drawbacks for the build, it's just a solid all-rounder. It's, again, not that strong on the sustain, but it is very, very good on damage, and you generally don't get hit that much on this build. And one of the best things about the build is that you do get ailment immunity. As far as financial hurdles, it should be incredibly cheap, a really, really strong solo self-on build. I hope you guys enjoyed this build guide, and good luck. Let me know if you end up using it. Let me know how it feels. And yeah, I wish you guys the best of luck in 3.15. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you feel like the video was useful, consider subscribing. But more importantly, try to die less than I do.